assume.
That's
There
the
you
one.
go.
Now, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine about a week ago. She said to me, I think that the problem with all relationships is expectations. And if we get rid of expectations, then we get rid of all problems.
Be nice.
That's a
I was
choice.
like, really? I mean, maybe you can qualify it and say false expectations, but then how do you define false expectations? But is this what Ask, Don't Assume is about? Do we have to get rid of expectations, or do we have to keep coming and going, am I still okay to expect? Am I wrong in assuming? You know, are these like periodical kind of pulse-taking assessments that we have to have? I mean, we came to the conclusion, because I was just like, no, I'm not on the same page as you, that we need to maybe reassess whether we want to do this, I don't know, yearly or something like that.
Those are brilliant questions, and yes, it's good to sit down together and talk about where you are in the relationship and set new goals and so on. But the heartbeat of Ask, Don't Assume is just recognizing that we all come into relationships with expectations. We have assumptions about what makes a good husband or wife or partner or parent or boss or colleague or friend. And this is how you should behave.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't even recognize that we hold those assumptions and expectations until they get challenged.
Right.
And you know an assumption is challenged when your response is visceral from the guts, where you find people or you find yourself responding so intensely and in such a negative way that you might surprise yourself, or you might surprise the person you're relating to, because they think what I said was innocent or I didn't mean it that way. And it's because we have these core values, these core beliefs, these assumptions that drive our behavior that are with the iceberg effect. They're not on the surface, they're deep down, and sometimes so deep we don't know them
We're not aware of
until the challenge.
Right.
But when you see that kind of gut response, that's the time to get curious and to ask. So this is like taking curiosity to a new level, to pause and just ask, what was it that I said or did that impacted you that way? What's going on? Where did we miss each other emotionally because you're expecting one thing and I'm assuming something else? You know, a classic in a couple relationship, for example, is around roles and responsibilities at home.
Sure.
Where one might come in with the stereotypical gender role assumption, you know, you're the one who does the cooking, looks after the kids, and I'm the one who does the bins and so on. In a more modern marriage relationships with what generation is it? Generation X.
X,
Younger than us. The younger
generation.
Y and Z. They will expect more equality and more matched efforts, is a word that's been used. So the whole assumption of how you do life together can be different. How you parent, how you manage money, those are trigger points because we have emotional attachments to the way we treat money, for example. One might think that the way to live life is to spend and enjoy it because you're only here once.
Right.
And that's a real closely held, deeply embedded value. The other person might think the way to do life is to save and to put things away for the future and to not be so wasteful and indulgent. And even the words they'll use to describe how you use money could be very judgmental.
Right.
That's when you know you're dealing with core values, and that's when you need to have a courageous conversation over how you think about it and what is really important to you, what I think is really important to me, and then how are we going to do life together.
With those differing core values.
But being very, very aware of the core values and being able to have a better conversation about it.
And just to add to that, if anything, habit 3 at the core of it really is about trust and respect.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we might all have different expectations. I don't know where my expectations came from. I just came to the party with these expectations. Does that make them right or wrong? They're my expectations, but who says they're right or wrong?
Right.
So let's have if we have different expectations, let's have a conversation with them, challenge where they came from. Is it really because I saw mum and dad doing this that I expected this was going to happen for us? Is it the right thing for us? And is it the right thing for us in this season of life?
Yeah.
Because every time life goes in seasons, and as those seasons change, you might have different expectations.
Yeah.
You need to have that conversation as a couple.
So is that where you have to reassess?
Yeah.
That's where you have to reassess.
As the seasons change,
you reassess. But through all of that, it's trusting or it's respecting that each other has, you might have different expectations. Yours is as valid as mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which is a really important point.
Let's respect the fact that we have different expectations. If they're different, let's talk about them. It's not I'm right, you're wrong. You need to my way. How is that going to end well? And trust that you have each other's. You're in each other's camp.
Yeah.
You've got each other's back. You want the best thing for this relationship.
Right.
Nobody's doing something because it's all about them. I trust that you want the best for us.
Yeah.
So let's have this conversation with that. That's the canvas that we're painting on.
Yeah.
Now let's decide what's the right thing for us as a couple.
Yeah, we like to say we have each other's back.
Yeah.
Rather than being on each other's back all the time.
I like that. So when you say unmet expectations, or when people say, "Oh, I've had unmet expectations," that's problematic, or that's unexpressed expectations.
Exactly. Unmet is quite often unvoiced.
Yes.
Because the assumption is, this is how I think the world should be.
Yes.
It's the right way
So
to be.
everybody thinks that's the way the world should be.
Yeah.
And this sense of disrespect comes from the feeling that you are doing this on purpose because you don't value me enough.
Right.
Knowing that this is my assumption, when if you don't discuss it, it might be the furthest thing from the other person's head. You know, I don't think we don't go into relationships to intentionally disrespect or break trust or upset. But the things that we do land that way because our assumptions might be different, or the way we perceive respect is different. So like when John did the towel flicking thing, I thought he clearly doesn't love me anymore. Yeah. How could Prince Charming ever think that that's okay?
Yeah.
You know, his assumption of what fun and frolic and so on was very different.
That you could be
from
one of
mine.
the
This
boys.
is my best friend. My best friend was just playing like I would
Yeah.
with my best friends or my brother or what have you.
So it
I
helped.
thought.
Yeah.
So it helped me to process it and not feel so offended
so
when
violated.
I understood his thinking was, you're just my pal. I love that bit, but don't do it that way.
Yeah.
So then we're on the same page again.
Love that.
So it's ask, don't assume.
Don't assume. Habit number 4: connect before you correct.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Now, this one, you say something, Andrea, and you say people go where they feel welcome, but people stay where they feel valued.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So when I read that, I was like, boom, that's it. That's my thing right there.
Yeah.
And then I realised that probably the world is littered with exes who are going, boom, that's my thing. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so we all want that connection. We all want that deep intimacy. And it's, you can say, look, you hear, see me. Don't correct me, just hear me, see me.
Yeah.
And so we're
just
all,
love me as I am.
Just love me as I am. And,
And I was going to say that the sad thing with that, we love that quote, it just speaks so loudly to us. It's just so powerful. And it applies everywhere. And the same reason why people leave organizations.
Right.
They don't feel valued, their boss isn't valuing their colleagues, etc. After a while you say, well, hey, I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And the problem is, with the best will in the world, nobody's in this relationship looking for other relationships. They're not doing that. But they're looking to feel value. They're looking to feel appreciated. They want to feel like they're a person. We all want to feel built up somehow as a person. And if we're not getting that in this relationship, and we're getting it somewhere else, so there's somebody out there who is making us feel valued, and somebody outside the relationship. We tend to just gravitate to them. It's not like we're doing it on purpose.
Yes.
But I'm not getting it here, but I'm getting it over there. There's something you're like, well, this is.
It creates a vulnerability.
It creates a vulnerability,
Yeah, sure.
and people end up in these situations. They end up getting sucked into these situations. So it's not blaming the other person, but it is putting some sort of responsibility at their door, at both doors, to make each other feel valued.
Right.
If you do that, you remove that vulnerability. So when something makes me feel valued over there, I'm like, that's interesting, but I'm getting this here. I'm good. But if I'm not getting it here, I'm more likely to be drawn to that. So it's a dangerous one.
Right.
But it's the connection that keeps you able to speak into each other's heart, to have a voice in each other's life. We use the example of our children, for example, when they become teenagers, and with all the social media and peer pressure and opinions floating around, how do you still maintain a voice as a parent? If you have communicated value, if they know you are speaking and building up their self-esteem, that you genuinely care about them as a person, and you are constantly speaking to that value, making them feel loved and appreciated for who they are, not for what they do, you will have a voice. You will stay connected, and if you do that as a couple, you will stay in each other's mental world.
Right.
You know, we talk about the kind of love map that people can have and can share. If you know what you stay in touch with what your dreams are, with what your fears are, with the things that are playing on your mind, is those heart-to-heart, open, vulnerable conversations that keep that emotional connection strong. But you'll only open up to the extent that you feel valued and appreciated and safe to do it.
It almost connects back into habit number 1.
Yeah.
So if you're curious, you'll be connected. And without, they're all cyclical, aren't they? They all
We'll take the time to understand what the other person, what makes them tick.
Yeah.
And a big part of habit 4, connect before you correct, is about understanding what makes them tick.
Yeah.
Now, the assumption for most of us, unfortunately, is what makes you tick is what makes me tick.
Yeah.
I would love this. So because I love this, I'm going to do the same thing for you. And when that doesn't land so well with you, we're confused. We're like, well, I would love this. Why don't you love this? Hey, have some more of it. I'm sure you're going to love this. You're going to love this. Have some more. Don't work like that.
Yeah.
What it's about, it's again the same principle of habit number 1 of being curious and understanding what is it that makes you feel valued.
Yeah.
Right.
If I can identify that and do
And
that
do
for you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
then you're onto something. The problem is we don't. We speak our own language. So there's this concept of the 5 love languages out there,
Right.
Yeah.
which was really powerful for us back in the day. There were 2 models really, the 5 love languages and the personalities. Those 2 really transformed our relationship back then, and so they're part of the habits.
Right.
And in the 5 love languages, essentially what it says is, this is Gary Chapman's work, but he said essentially there are 5 ways in which we all feel loved, valued, special. The good news is there are only 5, but there are different. And we all have probably 1 or 2, maybe even 3 that are really important to us. And so we assume that because they're important to me, they're important to everybody else, and we speak our own language to other people. But it's like the Englishman on holiday, the stereotype. You go there and you speak slower and louder, and you assume they are going to understand you. No, you have to learn their language for them to understand you.
And that's the challenging part, because it's for us sometimes like learning a foreign language in order to show love
Very much so.
to the other person. And sometimes it just feels like hard work. You'd rather so if you talk about, I'm very much a words person and a touch
Yes, you are
person.
very much. Yeah. See, I'm not. So it doesn't come naturally to me.
Oh,
I have to keep reminding myself that this is what
Yeah.
does something for her. For me, touch, especially in a public setting, I'm like, no, we don't do that.
Oh, that's
No.
so interesting.
So
So we
I
told
grew
the
up
story.
thinking touch is something you keep for the bedroom. No, in public, I keep to myself to myself. You keep yourself to yourself, and we're good like that.
Yeah.
So holding hands in public was a big deal, where I would, without thinking, because I'm such a touch person, just automatically slip my hand in. Then I'd feel him squeeze it.
So yeah, okay,
and
that's
then
good.
gently
Let go.
and I would feel so
Subconsciously, I'll do that.
rejected.
Yeah.
Just so rejected. And so that was another conversation to have. So it's, how do you care for each other enough to hear what's going on in it, how our behavior is impacting them, and what's making them react in a certain way. Because the more you understand about their concerns or their fears, or John's feeling of it, because of culturally touching in public made him feel so self-conscious. I didn't want to put him through that. I wanted to hold his hand, but I didn't want it to be making him so uncomfortable. So I decided, okay, that one I can pass on, because there are other ways that we can show and communicate love. But I'm happy to say he quite happily holds my hand in public now.
Even your knee. Look at that on program. Look at that.
On
How about
camera. But you said learning someone's language.
Yeah.
It's not about teaching someone your language.
No. It's about finding out what their language is.
Yeah.
And if you're in a relationship, then it helps if you can show them. Say, there's no harm in actually taking the time to say, what is it that's important to you?
Yeah.
So it's no point me just guessing it and, well, let's play this guessing game. I'm going to just guess what's important to you. Why not have the conversation?
But as you said, there are only 5.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a deeper point to that. love can't be demanded.
No.
So I can't sit down and say, well, this is how you show me love, because when he does, if he does it because I've asked for it, it won't feel like love anymore.
Yeah.
What's really loving is understanding there are only 5 different ways. You can have the conversation to figure out what lands most powerfully with the person or the people, with your children, with people you care about, and then discover ways that land well with them. And usually the things they complain about would be a good clue.
They're telling you all the time what's important to them,
Right.
by saying,
Yeah.
you never tell me I look good, or you never compliment me on this, or how come we don't spend time sitting
Yeah.
down? They're always telling you what they
Or I
need.
wish we would, or wouldn't be lovely if.
Yeah.
So just spend time listening to what they're saying. Oh, what are they complaining
Yeah.
about? That's what they're looking for. And if you did more of that,
Yeah.
problem is it's in our blind spot, because it's usually, I know we say God has a sense of humor. He puts different people together, and you kind of miss things. But because it's not, it's for me, touch and words are absolutely my blind spot.
Well,
They're not that
explain
important
that
to me.
some more. So I love words. You could, they're the wind beneath my wings. Tell me I look amazing. What I did was
You
wonderful.
look wonderful.
Yeah.
Right.
Wonderful.
And that does something for me. If I say it to John, he feels patronized,
Like-
and so
It's
he
incredible
thinks
how
when he
this
says
works.
it to me
He's
that he's
patronising
patronizing me. I'm
Yeah.
like, no,
Yeah,
bring
yeah.
it on.
Oh my gosh. But this is so powerful, isn't
Yeah.
it? And so you're saying the things that are in your blind spot could be their language.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Some people
Yeah.
have the same, in which case it's easier. But even then, as they explained it, so maybe you have different dialects, so there's different ways of expressing it. But it just makes it slightly easier if you have the same.
Yeah.
But we certainly have different ones. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
I'm very much a quality time person. I'm very much an acts of service person. I love doing things for people. I love spending time together. For me, it's all about spending time. So one of the examples we share in the book is on the quality time one. We'd be going off on a drive somewhere. The moment we get in the car, Andrew would get her phone out, and she'd be sitting there going through her social media, going through her emails, and I was thinking, we're in the car together.
Quality time.
This is us. We can talk. This is we've got
You can
however long
imagine
the
that
journey is.
conversation as
And then
well.
she's now
right?
boom, boom. I'm like, so to a quality time person, the message you're communicating is this little device here. All the people, the random fools, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, but that's how I feel at the moment. All these little
absolutely.
insignificant people
Yeah.
who are more important than me.
Yeah.
This is our time. But to her, it's like, well, I'm going to use this time. The quality time is not that important to her.
I feel this is sophisticated. I really do. I feel it's sophisticated stuff because we don't, intuit it. And that something else you say, I've heard you say, I've read, is that if you don't learn the lesson, you repeat the
You
class.
repeat the class.
And evolve, don't repeat.
Yeah.
But like I said, how do you learn those lessons when they're quite sophisticated? So someone comes in late from work because their idea is to provide, is to make the money, and and they're coming in late from work and you're thinking they don't care because they're not coming in and mine is quality time. So you don't have the language to express that.
Yeah.
You just feel the frustration. So this leads me on, because we've done the 4 habits, to my last sort of point is, what do you say to people who say, I've rinsed the toolbox, I've been through every self-help book there is, we are just, it's not working, we have the same conversations, I've tried it, got the t-shirt, watched the film, whatever, it's not working. And we're on different operating systems. There's an Android, I'm an Apple. Is there, and this might come down to something that you've already discussed, is there some integral piece of hardware that if it's missing, it's game over? Would you say that there's some incompatibilities that are, or is everything figure-outable? And I'm only
That's
going
a really big question.
and I'm going to give you a hint that I feel the answer lies in the will.
I was, the will and the skill.
And all these sort of tools that you're giving people are the skills. But that, even with completely different worldviews,
Yeah.
what would you say that secret is?
100%, because one of the things we would say, if people came to us, couples who come and we mentor some couples sometimes, the first thing we want to know is, where is the will to make this work?
Yeah.
Because if the will isn't there, or if the will is only with one person, it's going to be very hard. You need to set the boundaries that things feel painful right now, but we've made a decision that we're in.
Yes.
If the door is still open, you'll be trying to fix some things, but the option's still there that if this, I'll try it for a week. If this doesn't work, then I'm
Right.
out.
Yeah. That's not a good
You might
message
as
to
well
communicate.
decide to
No.
go, because you won't pour yourself into making it work. And I'm not saying that every single relationship should exist. You know, if there's abuse and people's life in
Of
danger
course.
and so on, of course you need to go. But by and large, people who choose at some point in their life to be together could figure it out if we had the skills and the will and knew how to relate to each other and not keep taking chunks out of each other and draining the will to even want to work on it. So one of the concepts that we've not spoken about yet that really helps put a context around the 4 habits is the concept of the emotional bank account. And it dates back to the 1950s. A guy called Ivan Borzamenyi-Nagy, a psychologist, who said every interaction we have with somebody, we keep this mental record of the interaction. So if the interaction, if we said something, or if I said something or did something that landed well with you, that's like a deposit in the emotional bank account. If I said or did something, no matter what I intended, if you perceived it as landing badly, that's a withdrawal. So I might say, you know, your hair looks amazing. You might have a thing about your hair, for example, and it lands badly with you, even if I intended it to land well. That's a withdrawal in the bank account. And the quality of the relationship is the balance between the deposits and the withdrawals. And the state of the emotional bank account will you'll feel it in the quality of the relationship. When the balance is high or it's in positive territory, there is flex, there's give and take, there's warmth in the relationship. You might say things and you can get away with it. Yeah.
So there's all sorts of extra things you can do.
Yeah.
When you're in overdraft,
Everything's a problem.
Everything's a
Just
problem.
like,
You
barren.
you can have the same conversation with a person that you used to have all the time. Now you get a different response.
Yeah.
If you do that and you get a negative response, that should be a very strong message to you that your emotional bank account is not in a
It's
good place.
drained.
There's something. So all the unintentional things that we're doing, because we're not doing to direct the relationship, but we are doing things that are landing badly, are just draining the account.
Yeah.
And once it's in that negative territory, it's problem territory. Everything is scratchy. Everything. There's nothing you say that you get away with. You don't say things lightly.
Yes.
Like, what do you say that for? Everything is, everybody's on edge.
Right.
You've got to work to get back into positive territory. And so the habits that we share, habits 1 and 2, help you stop doing the things that you're doing badly. But staying there is not good enough. You've got to
3 and 4.
You've got to put petrol in the tank. 3 and 4
Yes,
help you get back into positive territory. And that's where the relationship feels good. You can say things casually. You just laugh it off. What do you say that for? You laugh it off.
Or
you don't laugh it off down
faster.
there. In this territory, it's a much better place to be. So
Right.
you want to keep your relationship in positive account territory.
So we
Makes
think
sense.
not for every relationship, but in too many relationships, the natural frustration that you get by bumping up against each other's difference, where we need to become more curious and critical, if we don't have the skills to do that when the will is already high, you know, let's say you start out in a relationship, everything's going great, you start discovering idiosyncrasies or things that irritate you a little bit. It's okay if the relationship's in a good place, because you can bounce back and forth with that. But if you find yourself being frustrated over and over and over by different things, and you don't have the skills to talk it through and strengthen the relationship through that, you start taking chunks out of the emotional bank account and draining the will to want to be in the relationship anymore. Not that the raw material for having a good relationship isn't there, but you're taking chunks out of people's
You can't see a way back.
desire to want to hang around you, and you don't have the skills to get back. And sadly, our approach in relationships as a nation, as an organization, is we wait until the will's drained and things get really desperate before we start equipping people through mediation, through counseling, through talking to experts in the field. But by then, so much damage has been done that people aren't interested anymore. You know, so people have said, we're finally learning some useful skills, but we'll save it for the next relationship.
Wow.
But the next relationship's going to have hurdles as well.
Absolutely.
So
You say the grass may be green on the other side, but
Yeah.
it too has to be mowed.
yeah,
Absolutely.
You've got to have the skills
Yeah.
to enjoy, to be able to enjoy the relationship.
yeah,
I mean, I think that it's amazing stuff. And there needs to be, I mean, you're doing it, but, you know, people go for pre-marriage counselling or it's just like, we're not taught this. We're not taught this, and we arrive in a conflict situation and the will's drained out, and you see people, or you can hear people just go, if only I knew, I don't know what to do.
yeah.
I just don't know what to do. I'd still want it to work if I could in any way, but I just don't know what to do. So having this is just amazing, and I want to say thank you so much for bringing this into the world. And in my opinion, you're doing a great job for the forward movement.
Oh, bless you.
Wonderful.
Honestly, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so
No,
much.
it's been great
It's
having
our-
a conversation. As
our-
you can see, we like talking about this.
Yeah,
subject.
we get very excited about the topic simply because we know it can be life changing. It can change the
Yes.
quality of your relationships, and it breaks our heart every time we see a relationship that we think had the raw material to make it work. When we see that relationship dissolved, we think, if only we could have this information more widely available, not just once. Because if you hear it before you're in the middle of conflict situations, you might not remember it. But if we revisit it to the point that they become habits,
Yeah.
meaning our natural response or new default response, as opposed to something that we know cerebrally that in the moment is too much to process and we just do whatever default response we had
Yeah.
before. It's learning them to the point where we change how we turn up to relationships, how we engage in better conversations, and how we work towards better results.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke at the beginning about making, helping people be better.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. It's about us turning up better as people.
Yeah.
And if we can turn up better as people in our own relationships, our domestic relationships, it could be with our colleagues at work, it could be with our mates on the football field, or wherever it happens to be, we're just
Yeah.
better people. We
Yeah.
can relate to people.
Yeah.
It's taking personal responsibility rather than dumping the expectations on others to say you make me happy in this relationship.
Yeah.
It's taking personal responsibility for how you can create or help to
Yeah.
create a really satisfying relationship.
And it's changing yourself first.
Yeah,
And the other thing that I take away is that you're a team.
yeah,
And I think that if you almost remove that individuality that's driving so many people that I've got to get mine
yeah,
and
Yeah.
that I'm not getting mine. So I like that, going back to the thing where you talk about the differences but their strengths, because it's about, to quote, what can make the boat go faster?
yeah.
Yeah.
What can
Yeah.
we do to keep this thing on the road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that there's an African proverb, I think, that says if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that really is our journey.
Absolutely.
We wanted to go far for a very, very long time. So we had to figure out how to do it together.
That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. It's been great. Great talking with you. Great having coffee. I enjoyed the coffee as well. Very good. Yes, thank you.
Very much. Lovely.